Hi, I'm Adam Abraham. The video you're about to see began at Tesla Tech, the extraordinary technology conference, which is held every year in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The exhibitor, the main presenter, is Aeron Goldheart of Tesla Energy Lights. I think we can get a lot of agreement, broad scale, that changes are needed, are advisable in many, many areas in the way we do things. Healthcare certainly being one of them. And that's probably where the agreement stops. How to go about doing it, another story. Okay. The video you're about to see is not about that. It is about health, but not about the health of the body that you see. It's not about the health of the body that is typically treated and where all of the attention is ladled, if you will, is applied. All the prescriptions and everything else has nothing to do with that, so no need to concern yourself with that, okay? This is about something, this is about the health of something that most people aren't even aware, I'm going to presume, okay? Most people aren't even aware it exists, and even those who do, there's debate even among those who acknowledge the possibility of it, to what extent it's actually relevant or not. So, and on the other thing, it's so unconventional. It doesn't involve any of the practices that we tend to think are necessary. No pain, no slicing, no dicing, no poisons to attack, none of that stuff. So how could it be beneficial in any kind of way? There's no fighting involved. So therefore, anyone that is into that way of doing things and don't want to really get out of that battle mentality, don't worry about it. This isn't for you. On the other hand, there's some interesting information here to be shared, and it's my pleasure to bring you Aeron Goldheart. Okay, we're talking with Aeron Goldheart of Tesla Energy Lights. You've been 4 years since I've been here, but you're here every year. Talk about Tesla Energy Lights. What are they? And it's just perfect to have you at the Tesla Tech Conference, but what do the energy lights do?
Okay, Tesla Energy Lights are a subtle energy activation system. So what that means is that it feeds and fuels our biofield. Our biofield is containing our emotions, our mindset, our belief system, and the actual energy that keeps our bodies alive. So we're able to detect that through instrumentation, and what we're delivering is feeding that subtle energy body with subtle energy.
This is something that actually kind of gets overlooked in terms of this biofield. You're saying that attitudes and beliefs and thoughts, and if I'm getting what you're saying correct, are they all part of the biofield?
Absolutely. The way it works, it's just like when we're driving our car. When we put gas in our car, we basically let it fuel us, but who's driving? Who's in charge? Who's managing and directing? We are. So we drive our car and the fuel simply is neutral. However, that causes us to be responsible, mainly because when we get fueled in our energy field, we get to use our intentions as to where we're going to go, what we're going to do, and how we're going to process it. So that makes us more empowered rather than entitled, because we're not going to let anyone tell us where to go or what to do. So why would we for our wellness? It's just as important in the way we conduct our lives with relationships, the things we do to work, our income, the things that we do to travel, maybe buy and sell things. So in essence, our minds make up what we do. I mean, we would never know what we're doing if we didn't have it in order to manifest. So when we feel that part of us, Now we have more availability to become more successful, more confident, more in live, so we can have the things that we want in our lives to make manifest.
So curious, what is it that's actually doing the feeding of a biofield?
Okay, the biofield is fed very naturally in many different ways. We don't have the corner on the market for fueling it. It's just that when you do a 10 or 15 minute session, which we would then call a real power nap, when you lay down, the essence is that anybody has that for break time. It doesn't take an hour or 2 hours to do that process. So therefore, it's easy to do. The thing about it is that there's an integration process. Many of the modalities that we go through in life with massage or acupuncture or sacrocranial or things that help us, let's say physically, with physical therapy and adjustment from the chiropractor, nutrition, all of these things take time to work. They don't just happen overnight necessarily. Well, the way this works is that when we get it into our biofield, it also goes into our water, in our blood, in our system. And it's held there because it's shifted. And that shifting, then we're able to experience as a mood change, as an energy change, as a release. So therefore, we can activate the things that we want to bring into our life.
Now, I know this, for some people, this may seem somewhat esoteric because a person is simply just laying down in a restful position, and these towers are just kind of sparking and making noise, and visually speaking. But what's really happening?
Okay, Tesla energy lights are multidimensional in the way in which they are made. The bases are transmitters, and pretty much any transmitter will work in terms of if you have it comprised correctly, which involves a transformer, capacitor, a Tesla coil. But that's not the focus. The focus is not on high voltage. High voltage is what you put in the wall for an electrical appliance, for a megavolt. People work with millivolts. So because we have measured cellular millivolts, you want to put in something that's compatible so it actually goes in. We as human beings have something very unique, along with animals and plants, and that is that we synthesize. And when we synthesize, that's called alchemy. So the components of eating a food and mixing it with chemistry turns it into energy. And when it does, those are millivolts, like a battery. So consequently, when we emit a soft energy, which is through the tubes, it's frequency. Why frequency? Because that's the way we think and feel, is through frequencies.
That's the language of everything. Everything has a frequency.
We call it feeling.
Yes.
So when you feel something, you don't label it a frequency, you just label it a name. I feel happy, joy, sad, grief. Those are all different frequencies.
Familiar, unfamiliar, pleasant, unpleasant, all of those still is really the language of what, experiential language of what frequencies are.
Exactly. And the way in which we process that is not through our minds. We process it through our hearts, our souls, and our emotions. So our integrity is based on the way we were made. And the lights, the Tesla energy lights, put out those frequencies of balance purposefully. Now, why balance? Well, we have a yin and a yang. Some people call it positive, negative. Some people might call it male, female. It really doesn't matter what you call it. What we're talking about is the oldest principle in wellness. Do you remember our Da Vinci balance?
Right.
Real simple. Now, how do we do it? The lights use a positive and a negative interface, just like a light bulb. You won't light a light bulb if you only have one. Got to have both. And so the essence in the center is the filament. That's what lights up. Well, if we're in the center, we're like the filament. We're being enlightened, but on subtle levels, not just physically. So when the energy comes out of the tubes are radiating those frequencies, and we absorb it through our biofield. Do you ever go into a situation where you go into an audience and they're having a really live event and they're singing and they're, like if you go to church or if you go to some motivational speaker or maybe, you hear this live energy and you go, oh, what's that? What is that all about? What are they doing? Or you go to a funeral and everybody's just so
somber and down,
etc.
Yeah.
So you have different relative energies that you pick up on, and when you pick up on that, then all of a sudden it takes us out of balance sometimes. Mm-hmm. In other words, we can't be too happy or too sad. Where's the balance? Mm-hmm. Well, the balance comes when we make a judgment. And a judgment means we say it's right or it's wrong, good or it's bad, hot or it's cold. The problem with that is that now we have to go to another measurement to bring us back into balance.
Yeah, you got the pendulum effect happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what the lights do is they provide an anchor. And that anchor is more about, here's the resonant value of what does it feel like to feel balanced. Mm-hmm. And when that occurs, now it goes into the neuropaths. It's kind of like remembering directions. If you don't know where you're going, you're going to get out your GPS, you're going to get out your map, you're going to ask somebody how to get there. And the first time you might make the right or the wrong turn. But once you get to your destination, you go, oh, I remember how to get there. I can do that again. I don't need the map or the GPS. I can just go there. Right. That's a neuropathic memory. So it's the same thing here. If we know what does it feel like to create balance, then we can choose it. And that means observing. So what do people do to get into that? They do yoga, they do meditation, they do prayer, they do exercise, they do things to learn what balance is. But this is a thing in itself. It is balance because that's the way it was constructed intentionally. So that way when people lay down, which by the way is the way we all recharge ourselves and heal ourselves, because we go to sleep at night. Mm-hmm. And that would be called the altered state. Mm-hmm. So when we do that with the lights, we go into an automatic altered state, and then we can process the air frequencies that we're absorbing and then add intention to it, mm-hmm. just like we do if we pray, mm-hmm. just like we do if we plan. And so now we're fueling our destiny, our journey, mm-hmm. our future, because we have the energy to do it with. In balance. So I'm going to explain to you what the core of the value of the frequencies are that are coming from the lamps. This is a tube that's 27 inches and it's made out of quartz crystal. So in order for this tube to be made, it requires 2,000 degrees of temperature. That's the same temperature as the lava that comes out of a volcano. So it's pretty intense to make one of these. They're all made by hand. They each have two pieces that emit a voltage that lights up the tube. Now this is the first tube that we made with oxygen. Now, skip that. Let me say this again. This is the first tube that we made with air. And air is what we all breathe. Mm-hmm. So when you take air and put it into a tube, the electron molecules, the atoms, come outside the tube and they emit into the air. Well, our biofield, which is also in the air, now merges with these frequencies. So air is the balancer, it's the grounder, it's what we all breathe. So it goes right in very easily. Mm-hmm. But what we started to do is we started to modify the center tubes to deliver different frequencies for different purposes. So I'm going to show you a couple of other tubes that we've created for the sheer value of being able to pull this out easily, and it then becomes a tool for a feeling and an experience. So this would be for balance and grounding. The same look of a tube we also created called a DL, or a Divine Love Tube. And it has special frequencies to help the mind slow down. Sometimes when people try to go to sleep or try to relax, their mind just keeps on going and going, and they never get into their real essence. Mm-hmm. So that tube, even though it looks the same, has different gases in it, and as a DL tube, or Divine Love, it opens the heart. And the ladies love that energy. Then we decided, okay, what is on the counterpart, being yin in that case? Where's the yang? Well, we created another tube that has a tube in a tube. Okay, can you see that tube in a tube?
Yep, there it is.
Okay, and that little tube in there has mixed gases. And that mixed gas is placing them physically on its own little mount inside the longer tube, creates a different field of energy. And we look at it in gigahertz. It changes the gigahertz. Well, that affects the way it works inside of us. And what we have found to work in the glands. And the glands are door openers for other awarenesses. And I personally have had experiences where I'll get a download, I'll see a vision or a picture, and all of a sudden, it's like as clear as day. And I wasn't even looking for it. But other people report that they send love and energy to their family and friends in remote parts of the world because they're not there. It's very effectively felt by the other person. So this type of energy has an application uniquely for those that want a stronger, more penetrable signal. But the most recent that we've come up with that came actually through using the system with that vision is I saw this tube, and what it is you see a rod in here. It's a crystal rod, and it has salt in it, Himalayan salt. Now, why Himalayan? Well, Himalayan salt is from the mountains, and it's actually a crystal salt. And being a crystal salt means that it has vibratory value. And being in a crystal tube, it now has the ability for it to expand into awareness. So what's in this as a gas is water vapor. So water vapor and salt make what? Well, the ocean is made with salt and water. Our blood, our water is salt and water. When you sweat, you can taste the salt. If you've ever tasted your blood, it's salty. If you go to the ocean, it's salty. So what about the frequencies that precede physiology? Just like we were saying before, when we intend in the non-physical, but then we materialize. Well, here it's the same thing. We've got the material, now we're going to energize it, put it into electrons and atoms, and we absorb it in its purity. So what does that do for us? It anchors the purity of the impurities that we have saturated ourselves with from pollution, from the industrialization, from the things we drink or eat. So therefore we can go back into a more harmonious state with the evidence of new energy that really hasn't ever been done before. So we're proud to offer this because it offers a solution and an option that is not found anywhere else.
Wow. Amazing. Wow. When we were talking before and the lights were on, was it ozone that I smell?
Okay, the sound that you hear are called spark gaps. And
Right.
spark gaps used to be in cars. The spark gap has now been made solid state, so you don't have that need to replace them in a car any longer. Well, in this particular case, that's called an analog process. And analog is a value that sometimes is better, like in audio.
Right.
It has better fidelity with an analog tube system, which is in the 50s and 40s type of technology, but in fact sounds better because it has more dynamic range. Whereas if you use the digital, which is definitely more advanced in terms of technology, but not in the reality of the way it sounds. So in this case, why do we use an analog process? Because it provides us with more frequencies, just like it does in sound. Well, that value means that the person using the lights now has more frequencies in which to generate more awareness or consciousness. So it's equivalent to a lightning storm. We have blue-white lightning. It comes from the ionosphere. It's what Tesla knew. It's what was in his free energy package. And it was about mixing that energy, which is yang, with the energy from the earth. So if you've ever seen one of his towers, you didn't see what was underneath the tower, you just saw the tower. Well, what he knew, as well as what the pyramid makers knew, and that's thousands of years ago, is they were doing electroplating. Well, where did they get electricity from? The ground and the atmosphere merged. So when you mix and balance energy and put it together, you have some magic. Well, the magic that we're doing is we're taking this salt and water vapor tube and we're putting it in the aquifer position beneath the table. And beneath the table gives us an axis that's vertical. In other words, the connection to the ionosphere energetically and the aquifers. Well, we have that already with the balance between the two units, yin and yang, so we have horizontal and vertical. So now we have a crisscross. We've doubled the axis in the connection of the frequencies. Every time you add a frequency or a potential, you add power. Sometimes you'll say, if you ever learned in school, 10 to the 10th power. What is that? Or 10 to the 15th power.
Right, the exponentials.
Exponentials. Well, we have 17 tubes on one end, 17 tubes on the other, and 14 tubes on the bottom. And we have that between 3 units and the person. So we have 4 modalities operating simultaneously. We're a modality, by the way. So all of a sudden, we're into the gazillions of frequencies. Full spectrum, harmonic. No wonder people like it. So as a result, we find that our potential is exaggerated by our intention. And that's why it's so important to have the frequencies at hand, so now we can become more of who we are, no matter what it is.
Now let's take it to the practical. And you talked about this some here at Tesla Tech in terms of how the Tesla energy lights have been used, you could say therapeutically, to help people literally change the, Rupert Sheldrake might call it, morphogenetic field. But it's the surrounding universe of thoughts to the point that they change their lives. Would you talk a little about that?
Well, what it boils down to, again, is empowerment. A person always wants to be free. That's what our country stands for. It's in our doctrine, it's in our Constitution, it's in our belief system. So how do we express that in terms of boundaries? We have different boundaries that we have collectively. We call it the collective conscious or unconscious. When you say collective, you're saying a group. What my experience I've observed when there are users that use the lights is it starts with one person. And that one person says, oh, I feel relaxed, I feel energized, I feel balanced, I feel better. Okay. What happens when we mix that with a second person, the partner, the person that's their mate? What happens when they get on the same page and they're able to express to each other the same concepts, feelings, and thoughts and beliefs that make them feel closer? Because they are closer, because they're engaged in the same balance of energies. We have a special offering that we give couples, for example. They will sit one in front of the male unit, which would be the gentleman, or the one representing the male, if it's a same-sex partner. And then the female in front of the female unit. And what they do is they merge. They stop, slow down, and they intend to be unified. One, heart, eye contact, soul to soul. And then they embrace each other, they hold each other, and they feel each other. What an event that is for a relationship. And so when we see that in a couple, all of a sudden, something shifts, something's better, something unexpected is better. It's an event. Then we take a group. How about a staff of practitioners? We put these in chiropractors' offices, spas, places that MDs, NDs, acupuncturists, colon hydrotherapists, all these different modalities have something in common, which we all have in common. We all use the same energy to be alive. Same thing with plants and animals, subtle energy. So in a group scenario, people starting to work, let's say in an office where there's a lot of clients, well, that creates natural stress. After all, people want service and we take care of them. Well, what happens when there's issues? Issues of things that just get out of hand because a lot of people show up or somebody was sick or something happens. But the point is that I have observed in the environment where people start to cooperate, they care about each other, they're more compassionate, more patient, more able to conduct themselves in a much more family-like structure, which was not necessarily intended, but happens as a result because their energy fields are coherent with each other.
You know, when people discharge a lot of their energy, they may be crying, they may be angry, they may be in a lot of pain, and after 2 or 3 patient visits, I get affected, I get exhausted, I get fatigued, my energy goes down, and I can go in our room with the Tesla lights and lie down for 5 minutes and be fresh again, which is an incredible discovery for me personally, that I actually can go through my day, do a heavy workload, and be good at the end of the day.
So in a group, for example, we've seen sacred healing meditations where people will take the lights, put them in the center of the room, and then they conduct their love and connection with each other, helping each other meditate or heal their issues, because the energy in the room is now raised that all of the people in the room can now enjoy that and benefit from. So different situations occur, but pretty much in every situation that we've seen, everyone has an eloquent, lifting space that when they're done, there's not much to be said. People are just kind of quiet. Why? Because they're just in a new space that engenders new consciousness.
We've never had a patient who had a negative experience with it. It means everybody comes out after 5 minutes or 10 minutes feeling better than before. And so it's become a firm part of what we do in the office.
Let me, if I recall, and you can correct me, there was a group of people, I don't know if it was a project or an experiment of people who had been homeless, and they were invited to experience the energy field that's created by the Tesla energy lights. What happened, if I'm talking about the same thing?
Okay, well, actually, let's start where we had a 92-year-old gentleman who bought the lights for his express purpose of living to 100. He just wanted to live. He wanted to have the energy without having to be taken care of by a nursery situation or hospice. And he's very clear and coherent already right now. He's not sick. But he wanted to keep his quality of life intact. Well, once he started to experience what the lights were doing, he has an affinity to helping schizophrenics, alcoholics, addicts in essence, homeless, people that need help, that genuinely cannot afford it. He could afford it. He was a multimillionaire, and he still is. And he sees his stock markets every day, and he wants to give and pay it forward. So he asked us to help him out, find a place to put the lights. And he had tried a dozen places where he lives, which is in Boulder, and he found that they wouldn't accept the lights. They didn't want to feed people energy, they wanted to feed them food. And so he was frustrated.
Not realizing that energy is food, but go ahead.
That's true.
Another story.
But that's another awareness issue.
Yeah.
And so he was diligent, and he shared with me. He says, "I'm willing to donate the lights. I mean, you're talking $19,000-$20,000. Why wouldn't somebody at least try them?" They wouldn't even try them. So we went to Denver, and one of the gentlemen that I was working with had been an alcoholic, drinking a fifth a day, and he had a death in his family and was in grief. And so he came in, and we gave him several sessions, and his grief lifted, and he decided, cold turkey, stop drinking. He says, "I feel good enough not to drink, so I'm not going to." Okay, that was great. great that he would do this for himself.
No withdrawals, no regrets, no.
Nope. And this is several years ago, and he still hasn't gone back. I mean, he feels really good. So he said, I can help you do this. And I said, well, it really will help you, because he wanted more sessions, but he didn't have the money to buy the system. I said, if you will find this gentleman, we'll put you together, find him a place that would accept the lights, then you can get more sessions. Don't have to buy them. So he went on the venture of looking for the homeless facilities, and again, he found the same issue in Denver. He went to 10 of them, and they just said no, they didn't understand, they didn't want to go any further. And he's scratching his head like, what do I do now? I said, just keep going, you're going to find it. Sure enough, it only took another one, and he was able to place them in a homeless shelter that said, okay, we care about our guys. They had 30 men that were addicts, that were off the street, that were homeless, that didn't have jobs, and it was also a food shelter where they, gave food out. So we placed the units in there, and it was on a 30-day trial basis because we wanted to make sure that it was a match. And so I videoed it, and we have videos with the before and afters, so that way we can detect and validate the truth of the matter. It wasn't because we made it up. And what we found with the members was we did surveys, and they rated, and they gave us the different opinions. This is what they told us. One of the gentlemen was an astute man. I mean, you would think he was a college professor. He had such a wonderful vocabulary. I didn't understand why he was there. It really doesn't matter why. But what he did is that within 3 weeks, he said, I created a home for me. And I went, great. And then there was another gentleman who came in, and he was a...
He had been homeless how long, do you know?
That I don't know.
Okay.
There was another gentleman that came in that had been treating his family abusively. He had PTSD from childhood, from his brother dying in his arms. He was 11 years old, and he explains it. And your heart goes out to him, because here he is living in this locked up place, treating his family like crap, avoiding them.
Angry,
rageful. And now, all of a sudden, flip, within a few weeks, and he reported that he's now back with his son. He's taking care of his needs. He's happy. I mean, like not out of nowhere, but because he felt better himself. And there were others, same thing. The gentleman that stopped drinking, he was part of that also. So we started seeing these evidences, and here was the number one thing that came out of it. And this is what surprised me. The number one aspect that they reported was that their level of confidence rose. And so when a person has confidence, what do? They go out and do something because they feel like they can.
My name is Joseph Padilla. I'm disabled, but for some reason I just don't feel disabled no more. They told me I had PTSD, bipolar, and explosive personality disorder. My PTSD came from my brother dying in my arms. I was 8. He was 12. That's where that came from. Been in and out of the hospital. Even tried to kill myself a couple times. But they always told me that was not the solution to everything. I've been in the hospital. I've been in the hospital for most of my life. Been in the state hospital twice. The drinking and the drugs were, I don't think, by doing this, I don't think I need to do drugs or drink anymore. I just think that focusing more on the positive things, like my kids, are going to keep me away from all that because of it. And I like it. I don't have the urges to smoke that much like I used to. I used to go through like two, 3 packs a day. So it's having 1 pack of smokes going on like a week. I think that's an improvement. I was always basically angry at people for some reason, and but now it's just like I'm more focused. I talk to them more. I talk to the guys around the facility, see if we can help them out. Yesterday I helped out with trucks and stuff like that, doing the food bank, helping other people out, helping my auntie out around the house. Yeah. I didn't know it was like an ongoing process. But if that's what I get out of it, because he tells me always to take off the negative and put it in the positive. After the lights, it's like I'm really talkable. I don't know if that's one of the effects that these lights do, but it does work. I think it does, honestly. Being in mental health and stuff like that, it's I think I'm a more positive person right now. I'm spending more time with my daughters. My kids come to me with questions, and they're looking more to me instead of being a friend. My two oldest kids, I neglected them a lot. I mean, a lot. Where I would go months, years without seeing them, and now it's like we're connecting. My two oldest kids, me and them are connecting now. But now it's like, but I need to talk to you. He says, well, I tell him, son, talk. And I says, I'm here for you. He says, and we see each other and stuff like that. He says, you're different. You're totally different, Dad. And they like it. They tell me I like it. I do things more with them, with all of them. I have more life medium in my life right now than I ever did, honestly. Because one, they like to go bike riding. My kids love bike riding, and then we get these bikes and we go bike riding, and I like it. I enjoy it, and I don't know how to explain to them, but I believe these lights are working for me. If this would stay here, I'm hoping it does, I'd probably use it every day, because I don't want to be stressed out no more. I want to basically say, hey, I gotta go do my lights. I would even take this home and use it every day. but if I had to come here and use it, I would use it every single day, because I have more energy in my body now than I ever did in my life. So and I like it. I really enjoy it. And I didn't think nothing was going to happen, but honestly, it did.
You know, what I love to see is each person has their own story and their own value, because we all have different issues. So it really doesn't matter in terms of anything other than the fact that there was an improvement, that they're happier as a person, and they're sharing it with other people. Mm-hmm. And that means that socially we become more engaged in helping each other out and sharing. And that's the course of action that in that situation occurred. So when it came to what we're doing today, what we're working with today, and you see behind me a picture of a clinic. It's called the Patriots Clinic in Oklahoma City. It's for veterans that are attempting suicide. Now they're attempting 22 suicides a day. That's pretty serious.
Understand that we have 1 million battle casualties from the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. 1 million young men and women who answered our nation's call and who are today living misery. They are committing suicide at the rate of 22 a day, which means we have lost more to suicide than we have to enemy fire. I see on a daily basis additional people, like police officers, firefighters, victims of crime. We have literally 500,000 people brain injured to the point they go to the hospital every single year. There are millions who are living with brain injury unnecessarily. We see it in workers' comp. We see it in falls. We see it in motor vehicle accidents. And we can help all of those people.
They've even gotten to the point where they collectively get together to have a suicide party and do it as a group.
Okay.
That's pretty severe.
Yep.
And so what he's doing is offering them free the use of his equipment. Now what he has is hyperbaric equipment.
The key therapies we're using, the core therapies we're using, such as hyperbaric oxygen therapy, are known to rebuild the brain. We've been treating with hyperbaric oxygen for brain injury for 77 years. Since 1937, that's a long time. Now let me talk about the Tesla Energy Lights, the hyperbarics, and the Nano-V system together for a minute. It's been really interesting to see that when we can use them like the design is, have them use the Tesla Energy Lights first, it has a calming effect on them. I have a number of people that are claustrophobic for very good reason. We're actually saturating somebody with 7 times more oxygen than normal. It's a 700% increase in the tissue oxygen in the brain and the body. But that doesn't mean it all gets used by the body. You're going to exhale a large amount of that. The Tesla lights also give us better oxygen utilization by separating out the red blood cells so that they can carry oxygen more efficiently and you don't get some of the clumping effects. We treat a lot of stroke patients here, and if you think about a typical stroke patient, there's a lot of clotting that went on that can create these strokes. And so by allowing the red blood cells to be more separated and independent of each other, they really have a positive impact on circulation.
Hyperbaric oxygen equipment is underutilized, mainly because it's overcharged. We rate those charges in society normally at $322 a session, which for anyone that's homeless or an addict cannot afford.
We're out of range of most people, yeah.
So he says if I try to even charge them $10, they don't have it. So he gives it away. But what he asks them to do, he's paying it forward, and he's asking them to pay it forward, so when they get clear, when they feel better, when they return to work, now they can give to their people, knowing that the other veterans are coming, and therefore paying it forward for them. So this is his goal, to put clinics all over the United States, starting in Oklahoma. He's already got a couple in Atlanta that want to start, in Georgia. He's got one in Las Vegas, 3 more in Oklahoma, including Fort Sill. He's working with different various organizations that help the vets, that send him people. And so what he's doing now is he's using the lights, the Tesla Energy Lights, to help them relax and soothe them, because they've been literally in a shambles from being shattered emotionally, watching other people die, whether it's at war or at home, and they carry guilt.
Characteristically, when people come in for treatment the very first time, these combat vets, they'll oftentimes have a very set jaw. They'll be holding it together. They'll have an underlying anger. They aren't sleeping well because of the nightmares. They aren't sleeping well because of issues with body pain. And as we start treating them, those things correct reasonably quickly. Usually the first treatment, they start having sleep improvement. If they have photophobia, that starts improving. By the 5th treatment, their headaches are under control. By the 10th treatment, they can sleep through the night. And what we see is a major enhancement of that with the Nano-V and Tesla Energy Lights because of that calming effect and those releases you're talking about. They get a very significant grief release and PTSD relief as well. We also use very good nutritional supplements here and counsel everybody to do so. so that we have the building blocks people need to rebuild that neural structure. If you look at any of the SPECT brain images on our websites, you'll see what we're talking about with restructuring the brain. It actually comes back, rows back in, and recovers in a way that hasn't been shown in any other technologies.
The thing is that when they get on Tesla energy lights, that takes them off that precipice. And the precipice, which can make them upset very quickly, now recedes. And then as they recede, they become more available to be who they are, and then proceed doing their treatments with the hyperbaric chamber. So now there's a protocol that they can now access through an organization that isn't going to hurt them, it's only going to help them. So they're not going to drug them, they're not going to cut them up, they're going to have the compassion that's needed to give them a place to live, and then have the integrity and the confidence, because some of them are addicts, to rise, find jobs, have their family, and give back to what we all want to do. We all want to be empowered, no matter where we come from.
Wow. So where can persons find more information about Tesla Energy Lights?
Tesla Energy Lights is not a medical device, so let's not mistake it. It is an energy fitness system. Just like you would on a treadmill if you went to the gym to feel good, to get more energy. And on that basis, since people can exercise, they can buy it privately, or a clinic can, or a professional can, a practitioner
Or a spa,
can,
or
a spa.
Yeah.
We have them, for example, in the Light Vessel in Santa Fe, one of the world-class spas.
some resorts probably could that would be a nice enhancement to a resort, don't you think?
Especially in a retired situation, because people start believing they need to die. And then they slow down, and then the slightest issue, like they break a bone, they check out.
They think it's now's the time. That's a sign, yeah.
And really, when one has enough energy, one recuperates himself quicker and wants to live. So we found that
So retirement homes or communities, so to speak.
very easily utilize this. But you know, stress is a big inhibitor, and we have that in jobs, we have that in schools, we have that in paying bills or traffic in the big cities. So it's not restricted to old people and retirees.
So you're saying workplaces? I mean, this could literally be something that would be a, let's say even in an office situation or a corporate situation, there might be you said an energy fitness system, EFS room.
Correct.
That would have Tesla energy lights in, and a person on their break might go in there and just hang out for a little bit.
That's precisely what we have seen and done. We've done studies and surveys with companies that have had recognized stress, and it has a profound effect on relieving that stress.
Well, it affects productivity, it affects absenteeism, all of those things are actually impacted by
And
those
turnover.
things. Turnover, absolutely.
Because if a person's getting a benefit from something that's going to make them feel like they're cared for without a lot of necessary attention other than go do a session on a break, all of a sudden the person can self-care, feel better, and everyone benefits.
Wow.
So TeslaEnergyLights.com is the place to go to look for the information. But I'll just caution you, don't look for it from a medical standpoint, because it really is not appropriate for us to be speaking in those terms, mainly because we're in compliance, and compliance means not making statements other than giving you information, facts. If you want more information, then I can be of assistance, specifically and subjectively. I'm available. My name is Aeron, and my email address is teslalights@aim.com, and I'm happy to respond to people that want more information.
All right. Aeron Goldheart, thank you very much. This is overdue, but I'm glad we got it done.
Okay, well, you're quite welcome.